My son-in-law thought I was just some clueless old guy who didn't pay attention to details. He'd been sneaking into my bedroom for weeks, going through my stuff, looking for anything valuable. But that night, when he opened my dresser drawer to grab the safe key, his face went white as a sheet. What he found there changed everything. And me? I just smiled in the dark. I'm Preston Walsh, 52 years old, and I spent 30 years investigating insurance fraud before I semi-retired last year. You'd think that experience would have made me suspicious of everyone, but when your daughter needs help, you don't think twice. I still do consulting work from my home office here in suburban Phoenix, so I'm around the house more than most guys my age. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth when Brady's voice cut through our quiet dinner. So, Preston, that safe upstairs, what kind of lock does it have? Amanda nearly choked on her water. Brady, what kind of question is that? But Brady kept his eyes on me, waiting. Something about his expression made my chest tighten. I set down my fork, buying time. In my fraud investigation days, I'd learned to read people's faces. Brady's pupils were slightly dilated, and his breathing was shallow. Classic signs of someone fishing for information they had no business wanting. Just curious about home security, he continued with that practiced smile. You know, with all the break-ins in Phoenix lately. What break-ins? I asked. I'd lived in this neighborhood for 12 years. The most excitement we'd had was Mrs. Patterson's cat getting stuck on her roof last month. She'd called me for help because I still had my extension ladder from my old house maintenance days. Brady waved his hand. Oh, you probably don't hear about them. Police keep it quiet to avoid panic. He leaned forward. But a man your age, living alone in a house this size, you must have serious security measures. Amanda shifted uncomfortably. Dad's always been careful about locking up. Right. But what about insurance? Brady's voice got more insistent. I mean, if something happened to you, God forbid, Amanda would need to know where everything important is kept, wouldn't she? The room got tense suddenly. I watched Brady's face, noting how his pupils got bigger when he mentioned my death, how his fingers drummed the table when I didn't answer right away. These were tells I'd cataloged in hundreds of insurance fraud interviews. People got nervous when they were probing for information they planned to use against you. I have everything organized, I said finally. Amanda knows what she needs to know. But does she know about the key? The question hung there like smoke. Amanda looked between us, confused. What key? Brady's smile got wider. The one in your dad's bedroom drawer. How do you know about any key in my bedroom? The words came out sharper than I meant them. For just a second, Brady's mask slipped. I saw something cold flash across his face before the concerned son-in-law look came back. I'd seen that same expression on dozens of fraudsters when they realized they'd revealed too much. I was looking for aspirin last week when my head was killing me, he said smoothly. Amanda told me to check your bathroom cabinet, but I opened the wrong drawer first. Sorry, didn't mean to invade your privacy. Amanda nodded quickly. I remember that headache. You were really suffering, but I remembered that day too. Brady had been upstairs for almost 30 minutes claiming stomach troubles after dinner, long enough to do more than look for aspirin, long enough to systematically search a bedroom. The aspirin's in the medicine cabinet, I said quietly. Always has been. Brady's jaw tightened slightly. Must have been really out of it from the pain. The conversation limped along after that, but Brady kept circling back. Questions about my bank, about who else had keys to the house, about my daily routines. Each question felt like a probe, testing for weaknesses. It reminded me of depositions I'd taken from people trying to inflate insurance claims. They always asked too many questions about things they shouldn't care about. Amanda mentioned she was still looking for steady work since the move. Maybe something at the library or a school. I miss working with books and people. I actually saw the Phoenix Public Library has an opening that might be perfect. Brady quickly changed the subject back to my security measures. When dinner ended, Amanda jumped up to clear dishes. I'll handle cleanup tonight, Dad. Come on, honey, Brady said, his hand already on her shoulder. Let your dad handle his kitchen. We should get some rest. They disappeared upstairs and I heard their bedroom door close. But as I washed the dinner plates, I kept replaying Brady's questions. The way he'd known about a key he shouldn't have known existed. The casual mention of my death and Amanda's inheritance. I finished the last glass and hung up the dish towel. Something was definitely wrong. The house felt exposed, like someone had been taking inventory. Upstairs, I could hear muffled voices, then silence. Time to see what other surprises waited in my own home. The first thing I noticed climbing the stairs was my bedroom door. It stood slightly open, maybe 2 inches of darkness visible through the gap. That door had been closed when I went down for dinner. I always closed it. 30 years of living alone builds habits you don't break easily. I stood there for 30 seconds, listening. No sounds from the guest room, just the familiar, settling noises of an old house and my heartbeat drumming in my ears. I pushed the door open slowly. Everything looked normal at first glance, but my eyes, trained by decades of methodical investigation, caught the problems immediately. The closet door hung open exactly 4 inches. I always closed it completely. Another old habit from my bachelor days. My dresser drawers weren't flush anymore. The second drawer from the top had been pushed in carelessly. A corner of manila folder peeked out like a yellow tongue. This was professional work, but not careful enough. Whoever had done this knew what they were looking for, but had gotten sloppy about covering their tracks. I moved to the dresser and pulled out the drawer fully. The folders inside had been rifled through, returned in approximately the right order, but not exactly. Insurance papers were mixed with bank statements. My will, normally kept in the back folder, had migrated toward the front, and the small brass key I kept taped under the drawer's lip was gone. I checked twice, running my fingers along the wooden surface where the tape had been. Nothing. The key that opened my safe had been discovered and taken. My hands started shaking, not from fear but from anger. This wasn't random. Someone had entered my private space and systematically violated it, searching for specific items. Someone who knew exactly what to look for, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I wouldn't notice, that I was just another oblivious old man too trusting to pay attention to details. In my insurance work, I'd seen the same arrogance from fraudsters who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I closed the dresser drawer carefully, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it. If Brady thought he was operating in secret, I needed him to keep believing that. Let him proceed with whatever plan he was hatching. Because now I knew what I was dealing with. This wasn't about unemployment or temporary financial hardship. This was about theft, premeditated, calculated theft by someone who'd spent weeks studying my routines and vulnerabilities. Someone who was sleeping down the hall with my daughter. Sleep was impossible after that discovery. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind cycling through the evening's revelations. Every small sound made me tense. The house settling, wind through the desert landscape outside, the faint hum of the air conditioning. At 11:47 p.m., according to my bedside clock, I heard movement downstairs. Soft footsteps crossed the living room floor. Not Amanda's light step. Something heavier, more deliberate. Brady. I remained perfectly still, controlling my breathing, listening as the sounds moved toward the front of the house. Then, barely audible through the old house's walls, I heard his voice. "Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep. A phone call." Brady was making a phone call at midnight, speaking in whispers he thought no one could hear. In my fraud investigation days, I'd learned that desperate people often made their worst mistakes late at night when they thought they were safe. I eased myself up and moved closer to the heating vent that connected my bedroom to the living room below. Sometimes sound traveled through the old ductwork in unexpected ways, something I'd discovered during my first winter here 12 years ago. "The old man's definitely loaded," Brady's voice drifted up clearer now. "I found bank statements, investment, portfolios, the whole thing. We're talking serious money here." My blood went cold. We're talking. He wasn't working alone. This was bigger than just Brady being desperate. "Tomorrow night," Brady continued, "Amanda's going to her book club meeting. She goes every Tuesday, 7 to 9. Gives us perfect timing." I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, hands trembling as I opened the voice recording app. Whatever came next, I needed evidence. Arizona is a one-party consent state for recording, something I'd learned during insurance investigations. As long as I was part of the conversation or could reasonably claim to be monitoring my own property, I was covered legally. "I already have the safe key," Brady was saying. "Grabbed it tonight while they were having dinner. The old fool keeps everything important in there. Cash, jewelry, probably more bank information." I pressed record just as his voice became more animated, more confident. "Look, I know you're worried about the timeline, but My gambling debts aren't going away. Those guys aren't exactly patient, if you know what I mean. This has to happen now. Gambling debts. That explained everything. The desperation, the calculated approach, the willingness to betray Amanda's trust. Brady wasn't just an opportunistic thief. He was a desperate man backed into a corner by his own addiction. Preston's just some lonely old widower. Brady's voice carried a sneer now. Probably grateful for the company. He has no idea what's coming. Hell, he was asking me about home security at dinner tonight. Practically handed me the information I needed. Rage built in my chest, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to keep recording. The casual dismissal in his voice, the way he reduced me to a stereotype. It reminded me of insurance fraudsters who thought they were playing some senile old adjuster. The beauty is, he'll never suspect family. Even if he figures out something's missing, Amanda will convince him he just misplaced stuff. You know how old people get about their memory? I was 52, not 82. My memory was sharp enough to remember every word of this conversation, and my phone was recording every syllable. Trust me, by Thursday we'll be clear. I'll tell Amanda we got a job offer in another state. Something urgent. We'll be gone before the old man knows what hit him. Brady was silent for a moment, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then he laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. Yeah, well, maybe he should have been more careful about who he let into his house. Life lesson, right? The call ended. I heard Brady moving around downstairs for another minute, probably checking locks or windows, then his footsteps on the stairs, careful and quiet. I quickly stopped the recording and slipped my phone under my pillow. Through the gap in my door that I hadn't dared fix, I watched his shadow pass in the hallway. The guest room door opened and closed softly. For a long time after that, I lay in the darkness processing what I'd learned. Brady had gambling debts serious enough to involve dangerous people. He had an accomplice waiting to help him. He planned to rob me Tuesday night during Amanda's book club meeting, then disappear immediately afterward, taking my daughter with him into whatever mess he'd created. The violation of my bedroom suddenly seemed small compared to this larger betrayal. Brady wasn't just stealing from me. He was using Amanda as cover, manipulating her love and trust to set up his crime. And once he'd robbed me, he planned to drag her across state lines, probably with those dangerous creditors still pursuing him. But he'd made a critical error. He'd assumed I was helpless, just another easy target. He had no idea I'd spent 30 years dealing with people who thought they could outsmart the system. I'd investigated cases where desperate gambling addicts had destroyed entire families trying to cover their debts. I'd seen the pattern before, the lies, the manipulation, the escalating crimes. Brady was following a playbook I knew by heart. But this time, I wasn't just the investigator. I was the target, and I had advantages Brady couldn't imagine. Lying there in the dark with Brady's recorded confession on my phone, I started planning. Brady wanted to play games with an experienced fraud investigator. Fine. Let's see how smart he really was. I woke at 6:30, same as always. The recording on my phone felt like evidence of a nightmare, but the timestamp proved otherwise. 12:47 a.m. Brady's voice clear as daylight, planning to rob me tonight. Downstairs, I started the coffee maker and began my usual breakfast routine. Eggs, toast, orange juice. Everything precisely as it had been for the past 3 weeks since they'd moved in. When Amanda appeared in her robe, yawning and grateful, I smiled warmly. "Morning, sweetheart. Sleep well?" "Like a baby." "Thank you again for letting us stay here, Dad." She paused at the coffee maker. "I'm going to apply at the Phoenix Public Library today. Remember that opening I mentioned? I think it's perfect for my background." "That sounds perfect for you," I said, meaning it. Amanda had always loved books, and she'd be good working with people. Brady appeared 20 minutes later, hair still damp from the shower. He looked rested, confident, a man with a plan. "Beautiful morning," he said, settling into his chair. "What's everyone got planned for today?" I set his coffee down carefully, watching his face. "Oh, the usual. Might run some errands later." Brady's eyes sharpened slightly. "What kind of errands?" "Just odds and ends, hardware store, maybe the bank." I watched his reaction. A tiny muscle twitched near his left eye. The same tell I'd seen in dozens of fraud interviews when people heard something that interested them. "The bank?" Brady leaned forward. "Everything okay financially?" Amanda laughed. Dad's always been paranoid about checking his accounts in person. Old habits from his insurance days. Not paranoid, I corrected mildly. Careful, you can't be too careful these days with identity theft and online scams. Brady nodded too enthusiastically. Absolutely right. It's dangerous out there for someone your age, someone my age. There it was again, that casual dismissal wrapped in false concern. Speaking of careful, Brady continued, I've been thinking about your home security. This neighborhood seems pretty quiet, but you never know. It's perfectly safe, Amanda interjected. Dad's lived here 12 years without problems. But Brady wasn't listening to his wife. His attention stayed locked on me. Still, a man living alone, valuable things in the house. It pays to be prepared. You mentioned that safe upstairs. Is that where you keep important documents? The audacity was breathtaking. He was sitting at my breakfast table eating food I'd prepared, asking me to inventory my assets for his convenience. I have what I need, I said simply. Brady tried a different approach. You mentioned being a heavy sleeper last week. That's good. I worry about older folks who can't get proper rest. I hadn't mentioned any such thing, but I nodded anyway. Oh yes. Once I'm out, I'm dead to the world, especially lately. I've been so tired in the evenings. That's normal at your age, Brady said. Your body needs more rest. Amanda shot him a look. Brady, that's rude. No, he's right, I said quickly. I usually take something to help me sleep. Knocks me right out until morning. Brady's posture relaxed noticeably. Perfect. Let him think I'd be unconscious and helpless tonight. After breakfast, Brady announced he needed to make calls about job prospects. Amanda decided to organize their belongings in the guest room. I had my window. I think I'll run those errands now, I told them. You two enjoy some quiet time together. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Brady watching from the upstairs window. Not the guest room window, my bedroom window. He was already thinking about tonight. The hardware store was my first stop. I needed supplies, but more importantly, I needed to think through every detail of what was coming. Brady had made his intentions crystal clear at breakfast. Tonight, while I supposedly slept deeply with medication, he planned to enter my bedroom, locate the key he thought he'd spotted weeks ago, and open my safe. Simple, clean, the perfect crime against a trusting old man. Except the key wasn't there anymore. I'd moved it this morning after lying awake since Brady's phone call. The small brass key now sat safely in my kitchen junk drawer, buried beneath rubber bands and twist ties. In the hardware store's party supply aisle, I found what I needed. A small confetti cannon, the kind used for gender reveals. Spring-loaded, designed to create maximum mess with minimum effort. Perfect for my purposes. I also picked up a bag of ultra-fine glitter, the kind that sticks to everything and never quite comes off. Silver and gold, because if Brady wanted to be a thief, he should look the part. Back home, I found a note from Amanda on the kitchen counter. Gone grocery shopping with Brady. Back by 2 p.m. Love you. Perfect timing. I had 3 hours to prepare. In my basement workshop, the same space where I'd organized evidence for insurance cases for years, I carefully dismantled the confetti cannon. The mechanism was beautifully simple, a spring-loaded plunger that would trigger when sufficient pressure was applied. I replaced the harmless paper confetti with my glitter mixture, adding just enough to coat someone thoroughly without causing injury. The tricky part was calibration. I needed the device to trigger when Brady opened my dresser drawer and reached inside, but not from casual contact. After several tests with a wooden spoon, I found the right sensitivity. Too light and it wouldn't trigger when Brady searched. Too sensitive and it might go off accidentally. Installation required the same precision I'd used setting up surveillance equipment in fraud cases. I placed the modified cannon inside my dresser drawer, positioning it so the trigger would activate when someone reached toward the back, exactly where the key had been hidden. To anyone glancing inside, it would look like normal drawer contents, a few old photos, some buttons, miscellaneous items, but reach in with purpose, search with intent, and surprise. I tested the setup 3 times using a ruler to simulate Brady's searching motion. Each test triggered perfectly, sending a cloud of glitter exactly where an intruder's face and hands would be. The device reset easily, ready for its real performance. Next came the key placement deception. I positioned a dummy key in plain sight near the front of the drawer, an old luggage key that looked similar enough to fool someone in a hurry. Brady would spot it immediately, reach for it confidently, and trigger my surprise. The beauty was in the psychology. Brady expected stealth, silence, success. He'd budgeted for a quick, quiet theft. He hadn't planned for a glitter explosion that would mark him as clearly as a die pack marks bank robbers. By 1:45 p.m., everything was in place. The drawer looked innocent and normal. The trap was armed and ready. Brady would walk into my bedroom tonight expecting to find a helpless victim. Instead, he'd find justice, the kind that sparkles. I heard car doors slamming in the driveway. Brady had no idea his crime scene had become a trap. "I need to run out for a quick errand," I announced after they'd unpacked groceries. "Won't be long." At Best Buy, the clerk Justin was helpful when I explained I wanted a security camera for my bedroom. "Lot of break-ins in your area?" he asked. "Something like that. I need something small with good night vision, and it needs to be wireless." The camera was smaller than a deck of cards, with motion detection and 8 hours of battery life, perfect for documenting tonight's events. Back home, I found the perfect spot for the camera, nestled between books on my nightstand, angled to capture both the dresser and the center of the room. The magnetic mount held perfectly, and the camera's black casing blended with the book spines. Unless someone was specifically looking for surveillance equipment, it was invisible. I spent 20 minutes adjusting the angle through the smartphone app, ensuring optimal coverage. The motion detection was sensitive enough to activate when someone entered the room, but not so sensitive that normal settling would trigger false recordings. The night vision capability was crystal clear when I tested it. Brady's face would be perfectly visible when he triggered my trap. I also tested the recording function, making sure the audio was clear enough to capture any words Brady might speak during his crime. The setup was elegant in its simplicity. Brady would enter my room expecting darkness and silence. Instead, he'd be filmed from the moment he crossed the threshold. The camera would capture his search, his discovery of the dummy key, his reaching into the drawer, and the spectacular glitter explosion that followed. Visual evidence, audio evidence, and physical evidence, all in one package. Dinner passed peacefully with Amanda chatting about her library job application and Brady checking his phone frequently. I played my part perfectly, the tired guy ready for an early bedtime after a busy day. By 8 o'clock, we'd settled in the living room. Amanda curled up with a book while I claimed my usual chair, making a show of rubbing my temples. "Long day," I murmured. "Think I'll turn in early tonight." Brady looked up from his phone immediately. "Actually, Preston, I was hoping we could share a drink first. You know, father and son-in-law bonding time." The suggestion came out of nowhere, but his tone was carefully casual, too casual. "I was thinking about that bottle of whiskey I saw in your kitchen," Brady continued. "Premium stuff, perfect for a nightcap." I kept my expression neutral, but internally I was fascinated. Brady had been planning this conversation probably since breakfast. The timing, the suggestion, nothing was accidental. I appreciate the thought, but I'm on medication that doesn't mix well with alcohol. Brady's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Come on, one small glass won't hurt. Really, I should avoid it entirely." "Dad's right," Amanda chimed in. The doctor was very specific about his blood pressure medication, but Brady wasn't giving up. "What about just a toast then? A tiny sip to celebrate family." The persistence was telling. A normal person would have accepted my first refusal graciously. Brady was pushing because he needed me to drink something specific, something that would ensure I slept deeply tonight. "Tell you what," he said, standing up. "I'll pour myself a glass and we can just sit and talk. No pressure for you to drink." He disappeared into the kitchen before I could object. I heard cabinet doors opening, the clink of glass. When he returned, he carried 2 tumblers. One with amber liquid, one empty. "Changed my mind," he said, settling back onto the couch. "Poured you just a splash for the toast. Barely a teaspoon." He held out the second glass. The whiskey inside caught the lamplight, looking innocent enough. But I'd investigated fraud for 30 years, and desperate people always got sloppy. "Brady, I really can't." "One tiny sip," he insisted. "Amanda, tell your father one sip won't kill him." Amanda looked between us, sensing tension she couldn't identify. "If Dad says no, maybe you should respect that." Brady's jaw tightened. For just a moment, his mask slipped completely. I saw frustration, calculation, and something close to panic flicker across his features. "You know what?" I said, standing carefully. "I'm more tired than I thought. I think I'll take one of those sleeping pills and call it a night." Brady's posture changed immediately. "Sleeping pills? Doctor prescribed them last month." Powerful stuff. Knocks me out completely. I'll be dead to the world until morning. Relief flooded Brady's face. That sounds perfect. You need your rest. Sweet dreams, Dad, Amanda said, kissing my cheek. See you in the morning. In my bedroom, I went through the motions of preparing for sleep, changing clothes, brushing teeth, turning down the bed. But I also double-checked my camera positioning and confirmed the glitter trap was ready. I turned off my bedroom light and settled onto the bed fully clothed, positioning myself where I could see the hallway through my slightly open door. Downstairs, I could hear the television playing softly, Brady and Amanda talking in hushed voices, then Amanda's footsteps on the stairs, the guest room door closing. Brady stayed downstairs, waiting, probably watching the clock, calculating how long it would take for my sleeping pill to take full effect. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. The camera showed my empty bedroom in perfect night vision detail. The trap was set. The stage was prepared. At 2:43 a.m., I heard the first creak on the stairs. Brady moved like a professional burglar, avoiding the spots on the stairs that groaned under weight. He'd learned my house's quirks during his 3-week residency, mapping every sound that might betray his presence. The hallway floorboard outside my room whispered under his weight, then silence. He was listening, making sure his sleeping pill story had worked its magic. I controlled my breathing, keeping it deep and regular. The performance of my life with my daughter's future hanging in the balance. My door handle turned with glacial slowness. Brady's silhouette appeared in the doorway, backlit by the faint hallway nightlight. He stood frozen for 30 seconds, watching my supposedly unconscious form. Satisfied I was deeply sedated, he slipped inside. Brady moved with predatory confidence now, believing himself invisible and untouchable. His dark clothing made him nearly invisible, but I could track his movement by sound in the shifting shadows. He approached my dresser with the certainty of a man who'd planned every step. 3 weeks of reconnaissance had taught him exactly where to find what he needed. The key that would unlock my safe, my security, my life savings. I watched him position himself directly in front of the dresser. His hands reached for the second drawer, the one containing my hidden key and his spectacular surprise. The drawer slid open smoothly. For a split second, Brady's posture radiated triumph. He'd found his target, reached inside confidently, fingers seeking the brass key that would solve all his problems. Then my confetti bomb exploded. Boom! The sound was magnificent, like a party favor crossed with a small cannon. Silver and gold glitter erupted in a glorious cloud, coating Brady from head to toe in sparkling confetti. The explosion echoed through the house like celebratory gunfire. Brady stumbled backward, cursing violently as glitter settled in his hair, on his clothes, across his shocked face. He looked like he'd been attacked by a craft store explosion, transformed into a walking disco ball. "What the hell?" he gasped, brushing frantically at the glitter that clung to everything. I performed my awakening with Academy Award precision, sitting up with startled confusion. "What on earth?" I called out, reaching for my bedside lamp. "What was that noise?" Light flooded the room, revealing Brady in all his glittering glory. He stood frozen beside my dresser, covered head to toe in festive confetti, holding the dummy key I'd placed as bait. "Brady?" I blinked with theatrical bewilderment. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Glitter fell from his hair like holiday snow. I heard a noise," he stammered. "Thought someone might be breaking in." "Breaking in? And you ended up sparkling?" From down the hall came the sound of feet hitting the floor. Amanda, awakened by the explosion, was coming to investigate. Brady's eyes widened with panic. "How do you explain being covered in craft supplies while robbing your father-in-law at 3 o'clock a.m.? Dad? What's happening?" Amanda's voice carried worry and growing alertness. Brady opened his mouth desperately, but no believable explanation emerged. He was caught literally red-handed, or rather glitter-handed, in the act of betraying our family. I allowed myself the smallest smile as footsteps approached down the hallway. Justice, it turned out, was beautifully sparkly. The confrontation that followed was everything I'd hoped for. Amanda's face when she heard the recording, Brady's desperate attempts to explain away his glittering guilt, the moment my daughter finally saw her husband's true nature. By morning, Brady was gone, taking nothing but his clothes and $47,000 worth of gambling debt. Amanda filed for divorce that week, and within a month, she'd started her job at the Phoenix Public Library. 3 months later, I was making coffee when Amanda came downstairs, dressed for work. She'd taken to morning routines with the same methodical precision I'd always admired. "Morning, Dad. Sleep well? Like a baby. Any regrets about the great glitter trap of March?" Amanda chuckled. Only that we didn't film his face when it exploded. Her divorce had been finalized 2 weeks ago. Brady had contested nothing. Hard to argue property division when you're facing potential criminal charges and $47,000 in gambling debt. After she left for work, I sat in my kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the paper. The house felt peaceful in a way it hadn't for months. No tension, no lies, no one calculating how to exploit my kindness. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Forgot to mention, Mrs. Patterson asked if you'd help her install a security system. Apparently word got around about your innovative home protection methods." I laughed out loud. Maybe I should patent the confetti bomb approach to home security. Outside, spring was settling over Phoenix. My neighborhood remained quiet and safe, just as it had been before Brady's brief invasion of our lives. Sometimes justice comes from courtrooms and police. Sometimes it comes from trusting your instincts, setting careful traps, and letting people reveal their true natures. And sometimes, justice sparkles.